And we're live.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the City of Salem and the Urban Renewal Agency's Finance Committee meeting for August 19th. Present is Jose Gonzalez.
Vanessa
Thank you,
Nordyke.
Barney. Sorry.
Member Nordyke, Member Barney, thank you.
And Linda Nishioka.
Member Nishioka, thank you. And staff present.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer.
Callie Leinenbach, Budget Manager.
Shannon Thomas, Admin Analyst.
And online we have Kelly.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry,
Just that
yes.
table. Yeah, the table you guys are at makes it look like it's a 100-foot long table.
And I'm Anya Hill, the Treasury Supervisor.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anya. Thank you so much. Let's see. First item is approval of the minutes. So I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the July 15th Finance Committee meeting.
I will move.
I'll
Moved by
second.
Nordyke, seconded by Barney. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor, just thumbs up or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, sounds good. Motion passes. And anybody signed up for public comment, Josh?
No, not today.
Yeah, I see no action items. So we'll go right into the management update information items. We're going to be looking at the quarterly investment report update and a PERS update. So yeah, Josh, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I do expect this to be a shorter meeting, but we wanted to make sure we met to go over the quarterly investment report. And we have a PERS update for you. The quarterly investment report, it's as of June 30th. So the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2024. And it walks through all our investments and includes the ESG overview, the environmental, social, and governance overview we've talked about in the past. Nothing really notable with my review that I want to call out. We're still in a weird spot with investments. We still have a inverted yield curve. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the weird things going on, but nothing really notable to call out other than we're still generating a pretty decent return on our investments that we have out there. That's one plus of the current interest rate environment. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Member Nordyke, go ahead.
Thank you, Jose. And thank you, Josh. I was looking at the portfolio performance for the short-term portfolio, and I was just looking at interest earned over 18,000 for the year, 45,000 in 3 years. But then the 5-year interest jumps to $327,253. I'm just wondering, it seems to me like such a big jump between 3 years and 5 years. Could you explain that a little more in detail? And that is, it's page 30 of the agenda packet, if that's helpful to folks.
That is helpful. So are you looking at the market value basis earnings? Is that correct?
I'm looking at the accrual basis earnings. It's page 30 of the packet. It says accrual basis earnings, City of Salem short-term portfolio.
Got it. Sorry, my page numbers are cut off.
Yes, me too.
So I think the biggest thing to note here on this accrual basis earnings is that a lot of the shorter term cash that we have, if it's sitting in the bank, it's not earning a lot of interest. So we try to keep a pretty minimal amount that we can actually in our bank account, enough that we need to have liquid assets to make sure we can cover all the checks. Sometimes that grows if a large deposit happens, but otherwise we invest things out in either the LGIP, which is kind of similar to the bank. I mean, we can access it pretty readily. And then otherwise we're investing in 3, 6 year, 2 year, 3 year investments. So that's why you won't see much interest earnings for those shorter holdings. You'll see them more out in the longer term, even for the short term portfolio.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jose, I have another question, if that's all right.
Go for it. Yes.
Cool. The next question I had to do was with just our sector allocation. And I see that it looks like a lot of our investments are in US Treasuries, which makes sense. It's a very safe investment, and we don't want to be gambling our money. So I completely appreciate that. I'm just wondering, I don't know what the term commercial paper means. Can you translate that into plain English for us?
I can. I mean, I think Anya Hill is on the line. Anya, do you want to talk about commercial paper briefly? She's our treasury supervisor.
Give me just a moment. I'm sitting here talking and I'm completely muting myself. But commercial paper, it's basically going in for some, I don't know what the right word would be. It's not a treasury note. It's kind of like a, hold on, I need to pull up my investment review just so I can have it up and ready. I am sorry, I did not get completely prepared for this time. Just a moment.
That's all. And Anya, while you're thinking on that, the
Mhm.
only other question I had for you, Josh, is I was just, as I can tell you in my day job, I have been shopping around for the best possible interest rates for my organization. And we all know interest rates are subject to change. I heard somewhere that we're at a 2-decade high for interest rates right now. And I'm just curious, as a practice, how often do you and your team shop around for interest rates to make the most that we can, and interest, while of course taking into account things like risk and so forth?
Yeah,
We
really
actually do that on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Sorry, Josh.
that is correct. So whenever we have something that matures, so whether it's a treasury note or a stock, that'll come up for review. And we'll ask for recommendations from our investment advisor for various options, depending on where we want to invest, if we want it for 1, 2, 3 years or more longer term. They'll give us recommendations based on what they have out there in the market right now. So it's not we don't reinvest. We just, when things come mature, we go out and look for recommendations for where we can invest those dollars.
And the commercial paper that we have right now is mostly banks. And we have our PFM, who's our investment advisor. They're the ones who help with us help us choose which ones to work with. But the majority of our commercial paper is mostly with banks that we currently have.
And so
right
a commercial paper is a type of investment, is what you're saying. I was
It
just looking
is.
for a basic
is.
definition of what commercial paper means.
Yeah, it's basically a short-term loan that, you know, banks or large financial institutions go out and they'll basically say, hey, we need X amount of dollars, and we can loan them dollars basically for a fixed rate of return. So I mean, it's similar to other financial instruments, but a little different than a stock or a bond or something like that.
And it's normally
Josh,
for
like
a
we're
short term.
participating.
Oh, it's normally for a short term obligation, like for a specific project or something like that, where they're looking for immediate financing.
So then we'd be participating in their debt, like in that, on the debt side? Is that what it
Yes.
is?
That's correct, yes. And we do, the investment policy calls out limitations for how much we can have invested in each of those categories. And we are in full compliance with the investment policy.
Any other
Investment
questions? Member Nordic?
policy is where we can't have it more than 5% in one particular company or bank. So
Any other questions for Josh and the staff? Josh, I sort of had a question, but sort of a comment. You know, this information is just, it's super valuable, you know, just takes time to read it all and really absorb it. But, you know, as of at the end of that quarter, they said it's priced in, a soft landing was priced in. It seems like that's still the consensus going forward. But any other feedback, anything else that you can share with us that we could share with them? You know, just people that might want to ask about what our investment strategy is going into either a soft landing. Some people think it's the recession's coming. Some people thinking a crash is coming. So, I mean, anything you can provide, you know, because this is, you know, we're talking, you know, we're all here working in Salem. We're not talking to a firm in another state. It's actually us. So, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Unfortunately, I don't have any, you know, I don't have any significant economic insights that I can offer, but, you know, it doesn't feel like a recession. It feels more like a soft landing. I mean, just from my research, and even with our own investments, it doesn't feel like there's any big bubbles out there. Doesn't mean there aren't, but at this point, we're just trying to maximize our interest earnings, our investment earnings, while interest rates are higher, to try to offset some of the inflationary pressures we're feeling on the other side, on the expense side.
That's a great response. That's great.
So I see that, I don't know what page it is, that commercial paper lists 2, Mitsubishi and
Oh, yeah, for the holdings.
yeah, for the holdings, and that's at 4.8%.
Yeah, that's correct.
Don't know what page that is though. Because we don't have
Just
page numbers.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, Josh, then if we can move on to B, PERS update. Thank you.
Just 1 second, we'll share the screen. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Callie, but real quick before I do, we're going to try to do these a little more often. You know, so when we hear things about PERS, in this case, Public Employee Retirement System, that we can bring, you know, short presentations back to the Finance Committee so you have a better awareness of what's going on. We follow the PERS board. I'm happy to report that there is a local government person on the PERS board now, so that's nice representation for cities. It's something we follow, and you know, Callie's going to walk us through this presentation, but it's very impactful to our financials and our forecasts. So when things change for the PERS system, it's something we follow very closely. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. So I'm Callie Leidermark, the budget manager, and I'll just be giving a brief presentation today about PERS. So this was a system that is administered by the state of Oregon and created by the state of Oregon to provide pension benefits for public sector employees. And the presentation today will include a high-level overview of the system, a little bit about the rate setting process, and then some about employer rate assumptions. So first, a few fun facts about PERS. Yeah,
Fun facts.
let's start light. There are nearly 900 participating employers statewide, and employers include state agencies, universities and colleges, school districts, counties, cities, and other government agencies. Currently, there are about 405,000 PERS members system-wide, with most of the members being active, meaning that they're still working for a PERS participating employer. The average age of retirement for 2022 retirees is 61 years old, and the average years of service for those same retirees is 27 years of service. Approximately 9,900 members continue working after retirement, and the average retirement benefit is approximately 51% of the final average salary for those members. That's interesting. So a little bit about the PERS board. The PERS board provides oversight and direction for the program. The PERS board is appointed by the governor and has 5 members with business, pension and investment, or public employment experience. Their main objective is to retain consultants to advise them and to appoint the PERS executive director. So the board meets every other month to hear about operations and performance, to adopt changes to administrative rules, and receive updates on the agency budget and projects. They also adopt actuarial methods and assumptions that impact PERS rates. So a little bit about the rate setting cycle. It's a 2-year cycle. Effective in odd years, the board adopts rates that participating employers pay to PERS on behalf of public employees for the next 2 years. Employers, including the city, will receive rates in October, so just a few months here, based on evaluation from December 31st, 2023. And those rates will be effective from July 1st, 25 through June 30th, 2027. And then in even years, employers receive advisory rates based on the mid-cycle analysis to keep employers informed about where rates might go in the next rate setting cycle. So those rates are really for information only. They're not the rates that employers pay. So a little bit about the cost equation that ends up creating PERS rates that employers pay. Ideally, to keep the system healthy and solvent, the earned pension benefits, which are set by the Oregon legislature, should equal returns on invested funds, plus contributions from employers and members. So currently, revenues are not sufficient to fund retirement benefits. And when this happens, it creates an unfunded liability. So an unfunded liability means that retirement benefits are more than projected investment earnings and employer or employee contributions. So those are the system assets. And since retirement pension benefits are calculated on the highest 3 years of salary, larger than expected payroll growth increases the amount of employer contributions. PERS, however, cannot just balance the equation all at once. Because only really the contributions are within the PERS board's control. The benefits are prescribed by the legislature, and then the earnings are determined by the market and the investments. But they can't just, there's a method where they can't just increase all at once to balance the equation. And that's called rate collaring. So collaring prevents rate spikes and drops by spreading large increases over multiple biennia. So another factor of this equation is investment earnings, and those are determined by returns in the market. For the current assumptions for those earnings, the PERS board adopted a 6.9% return. And at the last board meeting, the actuary team presented that actual returns were only 5.98%. So when returns are less than assumed, employer contributions are increased to keep making progress towards balancing the equation. This means the city will likely pay more than the advisory rates issued last year, and also more than the rates that were used to develop the prior year forecast. Those slides were about the same. I forgot to click, sorry. So this chart is prepared by the PERS actuary team, and it's a little bit about the projected benefit payments over time in the PERS system. And as you can see by the dotted black line, the expected benefits have increased since the prior valuation. So that dotted black line was last time they did this valuation. That's where the benefits were expected to go. And you see how those green lines are just edging above the black line. So a little bit more expected in benefits over time. This means that the city will continue to pay more in employer contributions as salaries increase and depending on earnings could increase the unfunded liability. So here is a chart of our forecasted PERS rates. It is divided up by retirement group. So you'll see tier 1 and 2 on the top. OPSERP general service on the second line, and then the bottom line is OPSERP police and fire. So 2025 rates here were actual rates that were set by the board. And then the 26 and 27 rates were developed using the advisory rates as a base. For 28, I'm sorry, Counselor, I'm gonna try to fix this so you can see this. 28 and 29, there is a jump in those rates, and this was our assumption about how PERS rates would respond to when the city's side account concludes. So a little bit about the side account. The city funded a side account in 2005, and a side account is a lump sum payment made to PERS by an employer to prepay some of their pension liability. So what this does is it creates a rate offset. So they take some of that money that we've prepaid and apply it to our rate to bring it down. And that results in a lower contribution rate, which is great for the city. What happens when the city side account concludes is still unknown at this time, and we'll be coming back with more information as we get that. PERS is going to come out with more information in the coming months and year to inform employers about what could occur. But there will likely be 2 options, getting a one-time cash out of the remaining balance from PERS, or using the balance to create a new smaller side account to provide for the rate relief. So based on the last information we got at the PERS board meeting, the actuary is currently estimating system-wide rates will increase 1% above the advisory rates that they gave last year. So we did a little bit of analysis using last year's forecast and layering on that additional 1%. And just a small change of 1% in our PERS rates for all funds for just fiscal year 26 and 27 of the forecast was $733,000. The additional expense in the general fund was about $478,000. So even those small changes to our PERS rates are very impactful to the forecast.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because by the time you go to the next slide, I may forget. So all funds, are some of those PERS in other buckets of money? So that's why you're seeing the 700.
Yes.
So it's for employees that are paid through other buckets.
Utility fund, transportation fund,
Yeah.
health insurance fund.
Yeah.
I should just have that a little tape that those funds, in my head. So, okay, thank you for explaining that.
Okay. So here are some next steps. The PERS board will provide employer rates at their October 4th meeting. That is a little bit sooner than they typically provide rates to employers, which is normally December, which is good because the budget committee is meeting to talk about this. And so we'll have some updated rates to include in the preliminary forecast.
Okay, so that it will be included in the October meeting, all right?
Yeah. So also, we will be providing a preliminary general fund forecast to the budget committee in October. And then in January, the new set rates by the PERS board, as well as estimated PERS rates for all the out years, will be included in all the 5-year financial forecasts. So that's all I had today.
Thank you for sharing that, and appreciate getting regular updates on this. And yeah, this is going to become more relevant with regard to all our discussions. So thank you very much for that. It's Great information. Any questions or comments? Member Norton?
Thank you so much. So one of your first slides, I believe it said that is it the average years of service is 27 years? Did I see that right?
Yeah, that was for 2022 retirees. So it wasn't for all retirees, but it was just for the most recent tranche.
I can't help but wonder, and to the extent you can answer or offer an estimated guess, we hear a lot about how generationally newer generations are not staying with one employer of the same duration that, say, the boomers did. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people in my age range who are not staying with one employer for 27 years, nor do we plan on staying with one employer for 27 years. So I'm just wondering, maybe this is a topic of conversation at, you know, finance related conferences and so on. But obviously, the more years of state service, the higher your pension is going to be. And I'm just wondering, are we seeing any emerging trends about changes in that number of 27 years of service? Does that seem like a lot? Do you think that number is going to go down? To what extent can you offer some professional opinion on that?
I can try, anecdotally, I think people are retiring when they're eligible. So we used to see many employees stay for 5-10 years after they were eligible to retire. We're not seeing that anymore. So I would expect that number to go down slightly. For one, just a little context about 27 years. So like police and fire, they're eligible to retire after 25 years. So that pulls the number down a little bit. But for example, if you start early in your career, you can't retire until after 30 years. So it could be people who are coming into the workforce later. Maybe they were in the private sector for a time and then come into the public sector. So there could be lots of drivers for why that number might change. But I think generally, I think you're correct that we're seeing more people retire early when they're eligible. And there is this concept, also on that slide, it talked about, members working after retirement. We've seen a trend where people will retire, but they'll still employed with the public sector or someone else. They're not done working, so they'll come back and be collecting retirement as well as a regular working job.
Thank you. And I guess the only other comment I really want to make is that it's so important for us as counselors to continue to remind the public that we have a lot of fixed costs and we have contractual obligations to these workers that are binding. These are not things that we can just arbitrarily do away with, nor would I ever in a million years recommend. So it's very helpful to see that and to see that this is just one of the many things that is really outside of our control. How long an employee chooses to stay with us, the rates that the PERS board comes up with, we have to respond to that. We have to honor those obligations, but we're not the ones setting those numbers. So thank you. This is very enlightening.
Thank you for that, Member Nordic. Any other questions or comments for the staff? Member Varney.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for your good questions, because I was thinking the same sort of thing. One of the things we do kind of have control over is the employee portion of that contribution. And I think it's something to kind of keep thinking about, even though I realize that comes out through bargaining, et cetera. But as these rates keep going up, I don't know. I don't know how much control we could have over it, but I think that's an important thing to think about instead of us as employers paying the full amount. Just wanted to mention that.
I mean, something I didn't talk about, but something that was a recent change to PERS is a part of that 6% has been diverted to buy down employer rates. So like tier 1 and 2 employees are not getting the full 6%. The city is paying that, but a portion of that is being diverted to pay our unfunded liability. OPSRP is not as much, 0.75%, and I think tier 1 and 2 is 2.
That's significant.
Yeah.
2.
Or 1.75 or 2.7.
It's something right around there, don't quote me, but
I guess just in larger context, I think the legislature is always looking for ways to reduce employer rates and reduce costs. You know, they're one of the big players in this arena too. They're both the employer and they set the benefits. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. You know, because they see the same rates that we do that the PERS board sets. You know, they don't get a discount for their rates. So I think it's probably worth talking about the 6%, the IAP individual account program pickup that the city pays. You know, there's some history there that could be beneficial for the finance committee and the council. As well as when you look at options, it's not always as beneficial as it might seem or appear from the outside. So that's certainly something that we could look at in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So, talking about that, within those that are in a union, is that union negotiated? Or is that something separately negotiated?
So everything having to do with employment can be negotiated. So if you were to try to change that 6%, it would cause a negotiation. Yeah.
and one of our unions did negotiate when the state changed the IAP rules to have the city reimburse them for that difference,
To make up the difference.
make up the difference.
And if I may, it wasn't actually negotiation, it was binding arbitration. So it wasn't something the city negotiated. It was something we were told we had to do.
By the union,
By the arbitrator.
by the arbitrator.
Yeah, so as soon as you go into arbitration, yeah, they pick one proposal or the other.
Okay, thank you. And that was recently?
3
It was several years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago for IFF.
Thank you for those questions. Good, thank you.
Member Norton.
I just wanted to follow up on that. Does the city pay the 6% for all city employees? Are there any exceptions to that? I know we have several different collective bargaining units, so I was just wondering if that 6% is across the board.
It is across the board. The 6% is, you know, they call it a pickup. It's picked up by the city for all employees, and that happened in the early 2000s. It was negotiated each collective bargaining and then for non-reps. In most cases, it was coupled with either no cost of living adjustment or a pay decrease in some cases when that was transitioned. And then like Callie mentioned, we do have the one union that gets a little bit more than the 6% because of that IAP. We call it IAP option, but it's to make up the difference of that IAP offset that was put in place by the legislature.
They call it a member redirect.
Member redirect.
Yeah, I remember when I worked for the state, there were changes to the 6% pickup within my own unionized office. So yes, I do remember that. And I think the employer stopped paying much of that 6%. So it was how we did it. But like you said, there's almost 900 employers? It's mind-boggling. Anyway, thank you.
Oh, Member Barney, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say, yes, Vanessa, we did too. The employees picked up that 6%. And then in terms of the IAP, that pickup part, employees had an option of putting those after-tax dollars in to make up that difference as well. So there were options, but again, that's the state. I don't know how it all operates with the city.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Great comments, great questions. Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much. We'll close that part out. And any continued business or new business, Josh?
Nothing from staff, no.
And yeah, from the member Barney, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a proposal for some new business, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit to see if the committee is interested in this. I wanted to mention the emergency management system, or whatever, the committee that the oversight committee that I wanted met July 31st, and I learned at that time that in order to get the new EMS system going, there are things going on to purchase supplies and ambulances and lease the Hertz building, and there's some movement of funds from fund to fund, and there were discussions about loans and transfers, and my eyes kind of glazed over during the discussion, and it would be helpful for me to have a better understanding of kind of what's going on with these funds, because it does impact our finances. And if we take any loans from a fund, obviously the new program is going to have to pay those back. And then there are things like that I learned that we're hiring actually for the July 1st implementation, we'll be hiring 52 more employees for the EMS operator, to operate the ambulance. So that's the paramedics and the EMTs. However, there won't be reimbursements to be paying their payroll costs until much like November in the year or even later. And so those payroll costs are going to have to be borrowed from some funds. And so I'm just bringing this up because there's some things in transition. This is new, and I was wondering, maybe this is something that the finance committee might want to take on with occasional reports as to what's going on with that.
Let's see, Member Nordic had a comment too. No?
Oh, I was just giving a thumbs up. I like the idea of getting updates because, yeah, that's going to be a noticeable fiscal impact to the city by potentially absorbing a lot of people. So, yeah, I love the idea of being updated on Finance Committee on the money side of this major transition.
Josh, question for you. Where does that information live? Before Member Varney's idea, when or how would have been presented and gathered, and who would have spent the time and when, so now we can, like, what would have been what's the current plan, and how would it look under something like this?
Yeah, so the current plan, I think we have some authorized internal loans on the capital side, the council's authorized. But I think it would be perfectly fine to bring back, kind of the operating side so you guys can see what the plan is for hiring, cash flow. If there is additional borrowing needed, I think that's something that the finance committee might be interested in. So I can work with the fire department on bringing back information if the committee's interested.
Yeah, I think I can gauge the room, but yeah. Between Varney, myself, Member Nordyke, and Nishioka. Any thoughts? We're in support of that.
Yeah, I think that it might be a nice idea to understand the operations fees and how it transitions. I do have a question. Would this be somewhat similar to the WBCC in the sense that they came when they have to bring people on, or is this is a whole, because it's new, it's like a whole different entity? I'm just trying to find a comparison.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. WBCC is a little unique because it's so many different agencies.
Yes.
For this one, it's just the city of Salem. And it seems new, but 20 years ago, it's something we were doing also. So it's kind of going back to it. So it'll be a new city function. Yeah, so it's not providing that service to other agencies or entities. It's just the city. So we really don't have a comparison other than, something like police response or regular fire response. It's just another function.
So would this be something that would come to the finance committee and then we might then bring it to council just as an information item when it comes through, or how would it get to other council members?
Yeah, I mean, the finance committee can always forward information to the city council. It's also something I can talk with the city manager about if it's something we want to prepare there. I know that there's probably going to be information coming to city council because there's things that have to be approved before or move forward. So, but we can have those discussions. And then when we bring it back, we can talk about, what's the appropriate next step if you want it to go to the full council.
Okay. I think those are the
Yeah, I
only
mean, it sounds
questions
like-
I had, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Member Nishioka.
Yeah.
Any
No,
more?
Yeah, I just really appreciate it because I wrote down so many notes at the meeting and there were so many things like we've already ordered 12 ambulances and we've ordered supply inventory to stock those ambulances. And I asked which fund certain things were coming out of, and it was building and safety. And as I said, there are just so many moving things going on here. I think it would be helpful to just kind of have a bigger picture of how this is working. And, I don't know if any of this could impact our general fund down the road or whatever. I think it's important for this committee to just kind of at least be cognizant of what's going on.
Yeah, no, great idea. Member Varney, it seems like everybody's in support. I'm not sure if you need anything else further from us, Josh, but I think when you add this into the puzzle of the revenue options, what kind of, what's going to get funded, how, when, people are going to be asking questions about, this shift, this pretty big shift in how we're, handling our ambulance services. So perfect timing, Member Varney.
Yeah, thank you. One more thing. I mean, I can, in terms of public perception, I can see this, okay, we're in a budget deficit and struggling and making all these cuts, but we're going to add 52 more employees. And I think being able to explain that is important and how it's separate.
Exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. Perfect. No, great job. Great job. Anything you need from us on that, Josh?
No, I don't think so. I think that's enough direction. So I'll work with the fire department and the city manager to see what format that comes back in. And I'll keep you all updated, hopefully at the September meeting, but I'll let you all know.
Would really appreciate that, Josh. All right. Thank you very much. Thumbs up from Member Nordex. I think we're good. I guess I'll see meetings adjourned. See most of you in a bit. Thank you.
Take care all.